Hello and welcome back to the shop. It's been a couple months. I've been very busy with taking care of my daily driver and other things, but we are back in the shop. Things have been cleaned and tidied a little bit. I haven't touched this car in like 2 months. I feel bad. It's just been sitting here with a half disassembled front end because we are going to be fixing the crunched up sheet metal. So I've got the donor car all cleaned out and ready to go. I have some reference measurements here on a piece of paper so we can measure the engine bay. And now it is time to start removing the bad sheet metal from the front of this car that had a front end collision, take the good sheet metal from this parts car, and then we can do some paint and body work in a future video and have a nice, good condition car with all the front end damage repaired. We'll go through the process, because right now it's a salvage title, so we'll go through the process of getting it re-inspected, getting a clean title, and then hopefully have a nice, clean little roadster that we can enjoy when the weather is nice. So I'm gonna get back to work, probably just do time lapse because it's not that interesting cutting bad sheet metal out. I might explain some things here and there as I go, but I'm still learning. I've seen this done but never done it myself, so now the time is here. I'm gonna do it myself and see if YouTube is actually good for something. Sorry, that was really harsh. I don't want to disparage anything, but yeah. So we'll see if all those YouTube tutorials and watching other people work on cars translates into me knowing how to work on cars. So stick around and find out. Okay, fellow car enthusiasts, I wanted to just kind of come in and do a voiceover over the kind of boring time lapse of me emptying out the parts car. This was a true parts car. It had so many parts inside. I wanted to include just something because it literally took me an entire day just to remove everything from the car and kind of lay it all out on the floor, because there were parts from like at least 3 or 4 cars. It wasn't a complete car, but there were just so many parts in here, and I kind of wanted to give a little commentary on my experience. So my thought process when buying this car was I need to get it because it has the good sheet metal to repair the crashed car, but with all of these extra spare parts, not only will it give me spare parts for my own car, like headlights and other things to repair the red car, it'll give me some other spare parts for the black Capri that's kind of, I'm keeping still, it's in the back of the shot. I'll have spare parts for that if I need anything, and then my initial thought was I can sell the parts that I don't need or the parts that I get duplicates of, and I can sell that and kind of try and make back some of the cost of the parts car, and try and either break even or maybe make a little bit of money buying a parts car to then fix a car, sell the stuff I don't need, make money. You know, in my head it sounded good. I just wanted to kind of give some feedback as to, did it work? Did I actually make money? Did I lose money? How bad was it? So the total cost of getting this car, it was out of state. I was able to borrow a pickup truck and a trailer from work. So it didn't cost me anything to like transport the car from another state back to where my garage is located, aside from paying for gas, obviously, and food along the way. So there was the purchase price of the actual parts car off of Facebook Marketplace, and then the cost of gas, driving there, picking it up, driving it back. So all in, that cost me like $980 something. And then I cleaned out the car, kind of wrote down everything I had. I took pictures. I listed stuff on eBay. I listed stuff on Facebook in the like the owners group for other Mercury Capris. And it was probably like a decent 50-50 split, people buying things on eBay and people messaging me on Facebook asking for specific parts. Hey, do you have this? What condition is it in? Can you send me a picture? You know, and then we discuss a price. I get their address. They send me, payment. and I kind of do like a air quotes private sale instead of doing it over eBay. So it took a lot of time. That's kind of the part that I wasn't expecting, is like having to market the parts, I guess, taking pictures, typing out the listing, what is this, what is it for, trying to come up with a price, if there's looking up other similarly priced parts, if there's any for sale. If not, I just kind of pick a price that, if I had to buy this, what would I be okay with paying? And then going through the Facebook and the forums, dealing with requests. That was probably the most time-consuming part. Was every request I got, I would write it in a list. Next time I went to the garage, I wouldn't work on the car. I would instead spend my time taking pictures or figuring out how to get the part off the car, clean it up a little bit, package it, send it out. So that took a lot of time that I wasn't quite expecting. So I didn't spend my free time working on the red car with the crash damage. I spent my time selling parts and basically being an eBay parts reseller, which is fine because there's no deadline on the project. I'm kind of just working at my own pace. I can afford to take that time. But the kind of the end goal, I did make most of the money back from the cost of purchasing the car and transferring it. So I think I added up all the total sales. The money I got minus the shipping costs, and I'm like within $100 of the purchase price. So I think my profit from selling parts is at like 800 and something, and I bought the car and the cost of transporting it was 900 and something. So more or less, by doing all this extra work, I kind of got the parts car. You could say I broke even on it. Plus, I still have plenty of parts left over. I could still sell more parts if I want to count the value of the parts that I'm going to keep for myself for either the red car or the black car. And then the cost of the sheet metal, it's kind of hard to put a value on that because you can only get sheet metal from another car. And I haven't really factored that into my costs. So I know this ramble probably went on longer than I expected. It's probably longer than the time lapse, but if you're thinking about doing this, buying a parts car for something that you need and then trying to sell the other parts to make back the money of the parts car, it can work. It is a lot of time invested to remove the parts, make sure they're in good enough condition, right? You can't sell a rusty piece of junk for a premium price. At least most people can't. So it's going to take probably a lot more time than you're expecting. So just be aware. And probably breaking even is your best bet. So just a little tip, a little perspective based on my experience. So let's get back to the video and the actual work instead of just time lapses of me. If we go into the interior, I finally got around to cleaning it out, and it was very disgusting. So the front, the dash is completely taken apart and dismantled. So I don't know, one of the previous owners must have been trying to put it back together, or they took it apart to fix something and then never got back to putting it back together, so it just stayed as a parts car and traded hands a couple times until I finally got it. The back seat, we can see, is just filled with pine needles and leaves and dirt. Thankfully, it doesn't smell. There's no signs of mouse poop and rodents getting inside. So it's just dirt from being stored outside. This is the trunk. Even in here, had a bunch of stuff. And underneath the floor is good. It's not rusty. These little corner parts, I actually just found this out because normally these are destroyed. They're meant to hinge. So these little plastic pieces, they act like hinges, so you can flip it up and have more storage, which is cool. Put that back down. But yeah, I'm gonna actually clean the car now. But this is everything that I removed from the interior. So the listing said it was a parts car with a bunch of extra parts, parts from multiple cars. So we can see the main dash assembly. Then we've got two different bezels, two copies of the same thing. We've got an airbag, The steering wheel and the airbag, this one, the steering column and everything's still in there. It has like seamless piece instead of trying to straighten out the other one because it's so crunched in, it's right easier and better to just cut this out and load it together car. Marker lights. But yeah, this was just the parts car. It's sitting on 4 spare tires. It doesn't have any actual rims or tires. But yeah. I took a bunch of measurements from this non-crashed XR2 parts car and then wrote them all down, and now we can come over and compare to the nicer car that has the crash damage. So let me see if I can get the camera to catch everything and kind of show you what we got here. So we have our this was just some extra drawings, but we have a rough sketch of our engine bay. So we've got our tape measure from this back firewall that's got the weather stripping from there to this kind of front corner where the headlight starts. Right there we have our distance. We also have our distance from these little corner supports. Normally there's some tie rods that go from like here to here. So we've got our distance for that, front to back and side to side. And then we've got some measurements for this front panel here where the hood latch goes. And then we've got our general width, which is from kind of this corner to this corner here at the front fender to see if the car is kind of squished in the front. So if we do some general comparison, so this dimension from the front of the engine firewall up to this corner where the headlight bucket is, that's pretty darn close at 23. It doesn't need to be perfectly accurate to the millimeter. This is just to see roughly if things will bolt up and go back into place. This one is also 23 from front to this corner. Now if we go in, we can see this is touching, some of the hoses back here, so this is probably going to start being pushed in pretty far. So if we measure that distance from where this is to where this hole is supposed to be, we need to be at 26 3/4 of an inch, so that is about up here. So we're pushed in about 2 inches on this one. Same thing for the other one. Side to side we're looking pretty good. If we go from fender to fender, pretty darn close. So these 2 outer fenders are doing good. It's mostly this front structure, and kind of the really big obvious one is if we look at it more from the side, then we get our general front to back distance. We measured from the front and the middle, kind of at an angle going down with the hood. And I went to kind of the front of this square portion, and that is supposed to be 33 inches, which is way out here. So you can see we're pushed back a solid 2 inches with this whole structure for the hood latch, this front trim piece, and then kind of the headlight buckets, or these big squares where the headlights would go. So because it's pushed back so far, at least the top part is, we could try and just yank it out, but that is a lot of metal to unbend. So I don't think we're gonna be able to do that. Thankfully, sorry for jostling you around on the tripod here, but thankfully the bottom structure is okay. That was below the crash, the front hood, the front bumper cover, sorry, that sits below this portion. That was undamaged, so that went underneath whatever collided with the car. So that's fine. This lower radiator support, all that structure is the same distance to the back of the firewall as this one. I just kind of did a quick measurement from that front frame rail to roughly the back wall that's obscured in shadow. But that should all be fine. It kind of looks like it's bent a little bit, but that's somewhat normal. Main thing is just this whole front part, and then kind of this part that goes in between the two headlight buckets, and then the corners of the headlight buckets themselves are kind of pushed up. So we can see this was already repaired once before. This has a bunch of machine screws or tack screws, sheet metal screws. They're not supposed to look like that. It's supposed to all just be weld and seam sealer in there. So this car was, had some front end damage before and has been repaired before. So all we have to do is make our repairs slightly better than that. And I have a welder now, so we should be able to do some very basic welding. I did this same repair on my black XR2. It had hit a deer from the previous owner. So this is a common place that gets hit. It's not structural, really. It's just a pain because they weld it and you can't unbolt and replace this piece in front because it's all welded in. But that's kind of what we're looking at with this car. So I think in the next clip, we're going to be figuring out what to cut from this car so we can put it onto this car and get everything reassembled and working properly so we can pass all the necessary safety inspections and get this car back on the road.
Melody, what do spirits say? What do spirits say in a darker day? What do spirits say? When the mist is all but gone, there's something inside the water. Don't know where they're coming from. They are free to roam above the sea, and their story stays with me like a haunting melody. What do spirits say? What do spirits say in a darker day? What do spirits say?
Well, if you ever need to remove the fenders on a 91 to 94 Mercury Capri, most of the fender hardware is going to be these M6 bolts with washers on them. You've got hardware on the side here holding this piece to this piece. You've got bolts all along the top here. Sometimes you'll have little shims underneath. You've got one kind of in the doorway. So if we open the door, just real quick, there's one right there. It's hard to see with the light. So that's up top. And then there's gonna be one down below in here. There's gonna be, I forget if there's some in here, but there's like fender liners you have to get out and some carpet that's also in there. And then the fender liners are just over there, but there's some like sound deadening material that sits up here and kind of bolts to the, not the firewall, but like the inner fender area. So just kind of undo all the bolts you can see, try and wiggle it, If it moves, great. If it doesn't, you probably still got a bolt somewhere and you can figure out roughly where it's still attached. Okay, I got the fenders off and I'm just kind of cleaning all the dirt and grime that's built up kind of inside the fenders. That's all dirt from like this fender, which is getting chunks of mud and things like that. If we look at the side of the car, that's this area. Things get behind the plastic fender liner, and then all this just kind of fills up with dirt and mud. You can see the inside is just all filthy because it's behind the fender, so it's hard to wash in there, but you can get dust and other stuff in there. And then you can see where it traps the mud and the dirt, so we do have a little bit of rust. Now it's not terrible, like this is just a pinch weld, it's not really structural. All the structure is here and in this side piece, so that's fine. That can be fixed, or just kind of knock the rust off, paint over it with some rust neutralizing stuff, and then it should be good to go. But yeah, you can see down under here too, all that was hiding in the fenders. I swept the floor before I started this project, so that side is looking dirty. Over on the other side, kind of the same story, not quite as bad, but you can see the pile of stuff on the floor, rust along the pinch weld. Again, not terrible. We've got a couple little holes down there I'll patch when I do the welding, so I'm gonna try and repair it the right way, the more right way. But yeah, so you can see it's just held together with self-tappers. That's fine. Factory approved, right? It's in the service repair manual. Totally. Yep. No, nothing sketchy here. It's fine. Alright, so I'm gonna start taking all the screws out and throw them in the bucket, and then cut what isn't welded, or cut stuff that is welded that I can't just unscrew. But like this one for comparison, you can see it's just welded instead of a million self-tappers. This is welded instead of self-tappers. Down here, this has like little dots where it was pinch welded from like a spot welder instead of self-tappers. So yeah, pretty big difference. I mean, they both hold the sheet metal together, so I can't complain too much, but yep, we're gonna start taking out the self-tappers.
Down to the ground, you're dragging me. It's constantly. No, I won't make a sound. I love the pain. It sets me free. It's wrong, I can't make right. I love the burden below you. Tell myself that this is the last time. It's wrong, I can't make right. Slipping off in the moonlight when I knew the truth. I hurt myself for you. On the ground, I know the truth. I know the I'm shaking now, 'cause you say those things, then shut me out.
So to disconnect the hood latch, what you're gonna wanna do is get this, I've already done it, but get the end of the cable, that ball right there, push it through this opening here, so that way it can slide out of this latch piece. And then this part is seated kind of up in this notch. So just get like some needle nose pliers and kind of pull it out of that notch. It's a little wider at the bottom, but it's basically just a press in fit. And then once you press or you use pliers to kind of pry that out of the notch. Now you can feed this back through the hole, and you can either do whatever you're doing. So that's how you get that out. And then this is no longer connected. You can just take this, and there we go. Now that that's gone, you can see, you know, this stuff really isn't too bad. Back here, this can probably just be, you know, twisted flat, pulled forward a little bit. Back here we've got all our wires and everything. Inside here looks okay. This probably doesn't have to get, it might need to get pulled forward a little bit. In here, this was just kind of held on with screws, but you can see inside there is kind of filthy and gross, so I'm gonna clean that out with the shop vac, try and scrub some of the rust off a little bit. Like down here is fine. This tab is kind of folded back a little bit, so I can just kind of pull that forward. It doesn't have to move, it just has to tip forward a little bit. And then over here on this side is mostly untouched. We can see on this side it's kind of wrinkled in a little bit, whereas on this side it's not. It's just a nice, smooth, gradual curve. So that's probably how it was from the factory. So this side is good and pretty much untouched. This, again, pushed back a little bit, twisted up a little bit. So we'll just twist it down. It's really close to the engine, but this is a little car. It's a pretty tight engine bay to begin with, but yeah, so I don't think I'll have to remove this part of the sheet metal. I can kind of just work with this and then pull the good stuff off of here. That's probably gonna do it for today, just because it's getting late. And this was a lot of fighting to get off. These are all the screws I took out that were holding it in. So a lot of them came out easy, but some of them, like these ones down on the bottom, were all rusted. And they were just like Phillips head screws. So you couldn't just like use an impact gun. You would have stripped all the threads, or you would have stripped out the top of the screw head thing. So I'm just gonna shut up and call this good enough for today and go home. I don't know when I'll come back. I'll clean up a little bit of stuff, but that's probably gonna do it. So you can go ahead and cut this video. So I'm just gonna end the video here. I know it's kind of not a great stopping point, and we still haven't actually done much with the car. We've kind of just done the tear down and removed the bad sheet metal from the car. I don't know why this is taking 3 videos. Trust me, it's taking a lot longer in real life. I wish I was further along in the project, but that's kind of just how things go. It's my first time doing crash repair, so I'm figuring out the steps as I do them, and trying to go slow and document things so I can remember where everything was when I go to put it back. I have all the hardware labeled, I have all the parts, and I know what I need, what I still need to do. It's just a much bigger project than you expect. Initially, you think, oh, I'll just take it apart, bippity-boppity boop, swap some parts over, and fixed car, right? Not quite. So I'm learning as I do this, figuring out a process, also setting up cameras and trying to record things and not bore you guys with too many time lapses and just watch me turn bolts for 3 hours. Because no one wants to see that. So I'm trying to keep the relevant parts, so if someone else is doing this, they can kind of follow along and get some, you know, tips and tricks of where things are and how to do them, but also try and keep things moving along. So I'm sorry it's taken 3 videos just to get to this point, but I'm still working, still making progress on the car on, you know, weekends when I have time. It's not every single weekend, but here and there, trying to keep this project moving. So I appreciate your patience. If you're actually watching these videos, thank you so much. You are the realest. If you're liking this video, make sure you leave a like. If you want to subscribe and see the next one, go ahead, I guess. After this car is done, I am desperately looking back to get to fun projects, because right now this is kind of just a slog. It's the middle of the project. It's taking forever. I just have to kind of push and get through it. So thank you for sticking around, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.